couple people sent this in. I'll read you the article. I was surprised by this. I want to get your take on it, but this is from WMC TV Channel 5, their website. Jerry the King Lawler...
1960 Union Avenue.
Jerry the King Lawler plays final softball game after 40 years of Lawler's Army.
I saw that on Twitter.
Well, I guess I don't have to read the whole article here, but then what do you...
Well, no, you can read it, but I'm just saying I've seen this. I saw this, but for the folks who don't know, you can read what they said.
He's known as the King in the Ring, an artist, and now we introduce you to Jerry Lawler, the softball player. For more than 40 years, Jerry the King Lawler has escaped the wrestling limelight on the diamond. Here's a quote from Jerry. This, the softball, being on the field, look at this. There's nothing better than being on a baseball field or on a softball field. The bright sun and all your friends out, you can't beat it. For the past 4 decades, well, what a cheery guy Lawler is. Jesus.
I'll tell you, Lawler does not get wound up about a lot.
For the past 4 decades, the King's team, Lawler's Army, by the way, WMC, commas, look into them.
Yeah.
Lawler's Army has met one night a week to play beer league softball. It's a hand-picked team. Some members have been on the team for decades and now have their sons playing with them. Here's a quote from Rick Gresham. It's been fun playing with him for 30 years. Not many people have gotten to play with him. Ricky's sons, Hunter and Zach, grew up watching Lawler's Army games. It's been fun, Zach said. Growing up watching Jerry's been fun. Every time I watched, I wanted to play. So now I get to play. His older brother, Hunter, said, we look forward to it. Thursday night, and it's just been a journey. We've had really good seasons and won it all, and we've had okay seasons and still made our way to the championship. This season, the team found their way to the championship game again, a game Lawler wouldn't miss for the world. Here's another quote from Jerry. I cut my vacation in Fort Myers, Florida short just to get back for this game.
Yeah.
Well, the championship game had a little bit more meaning, not just because it was the championship game. It was the final game Lawler's Army would play. Here's a quote from Jerry. No, it stops. It's it. No more Lawler's Army after this, Lawler said when asked if someone could continue the team. The King treated it like any other night, but the game drew a crowd. Fans, friends, and former players. Jerry Calhoun was on the first Lawler's Army team.
I was about to ask if Calhoun was there.
He played for nearly 20 years. Let's not talk about why he stopped playing. Here's a quote from Jerry Calhoun. When I just talked to him, I said, I can't believe it. I thought you'd be playing until you couldn't walk anymore. And I'm right on that because he can hardly walk now. Even WMC Action 5 Chief Emeritus Meteorologist Dave Brown wouldn't miss the Kings' last softball game. It's not bittersweet. It's just looking at it as another night at the ballpark, Lawler said. On another night at the ballpark, Jerry the King Lawler went out in the most fitting way. Lawler's Army won the final championship game in the team's final game. So there's the article. I'd like to get your thoughts, memories of Lawler's Army against the WFIA, but also, are you surprised? I mean, they didn't say why he's stopping. Are you surprised to hear Lawler's not going to be playing softball anymore?
Truthfully, I am, and it makes me worry about him a little bit. But he still wrestles every now and then, as long as Bert Prentice is still breathing. He's going to be 72 this year, this November 29th. And the thing, the Lawler's Army, the name came from when he was a heel in 76 and 77. He did the general's outfit in the King's Army. He became not only the top heel, but he was the top heel manager of this group of guys that he had in the Army. That way they were always trying to figure out a way to get more use out of Lawler, him and Jarrett, because it would draw. So,
which is why every kid who grew up watching Lawler who got into the business later wore a helmet and fatigues like you and Eddie Gilbert and anyone who saw Lawler's Army.
Because the King's Army. And, we all stole that stuff. At one point, literally, they were having Lawler when Jarrett had first started his company, and parts of 77 was a little rough, just getting, talent in and doing things. So they would have him in 2 main event programs at the same time, and he would do double duty and wrestle 2 main event matches on the same card the same night when nobody did that. But just because it was better than having another guy in that other spot because he was, that hot. Anyway, so the King's Army became Lawler's Army, the softball team, which was Lawler's always loved sports. You can't tell it. He's never been on the inside of a gym in his life. Everybody knows that. And I find it funny. It's a beer league team when everybody knows he's never had a drink of alcohol in his life. But Lawler's always loved sports. He's a football fan. He's a baseball fan. He likes to play them and watch them. And for a guy who's never, he was never an athlete at a high organized level in school, and he's never worked out, but he always likes to do those things. And even though he's always played softball, the King's Army softball team was somewhat of a compromise between him and Jerry Jarrett when Jerry Calhoun, that no good referee, who also happened to be his brother-in-law at the time, broke Lawler. He's the one that broke Lawler's leg in that football game in early 1980, because Jarrett had been out. They would play him and Calhoun and all his guys, Jim Jamison, some of those guys that would do jobs on TV on Saturday mornings were friends of Lawler in his social circle. And they would go out and play what they claimed was flag football on Sunday afternoons in Memphis. And Jarrett went out there one time and said, well, fuck, it looks like goddamn they're trying to tackle like the NFL. This is insane. What are you doing? If you get hurt, you'll cost us a fortune. Our territory will go out of business. And wouldn't you know who won the pony? Within months after he had said that,
Calhoun.
They were playing flag football where you're supposed to fucking rip the flag off the guy's belt, right? But Calhoun tackled Lawler, and it was muddy. It was wet that day, and Lawler's foot got stuck in the mud, and it snapped his leg. And that's what, when Jarrett found out about it, that's the heat between Lawler and Hart that Jimmy Hart will tell you about to this day led to him getting his jaw broken when Lawler came back, was because Jarrett was so goddamn mad that potentially Lawler had cost them hundreds of thousands of dollars. Well, not potentially, he had. And potentially more than that, that he immediately figured out a way, okay, we're going to take Jimmy Hart, who'd just been the stooge manager in the corner, and we're going to bring somebody in for him, and we're going to give them Lawler's crown, and we're going to, carry on with this thing and put all the heat on Hart. So when Lawler is actually laying in the hospital bed the next Saturday morning and sees the TV, and he knows that Jerry Jarrett's mad at him because this warning has taken place already, you're going to put us out of business. He sees Jimmy Hart with his crown giving it to fucking, who was the first one? Paul Ellering, right?
Ellering, yeah.
And when Paul Ellering was just coming up and said, what do you do with a horse when he breaks his leg? You shoot him. Lawler got hot because he's in the hospital with a broken leg. And so later on, when Lawler came back, I was there that night. I got a picture of it. He's handcuffed to Jimmy Hart at ringside so Hart can't interfere, whatever the fuck. Lawler's leg's still not healed. But when he turned around and nailed Hart, if your left arm is immobilized to somebody else's and you're swinging with your right, you can be off a little bit. But Jerry Lawler, the master of the punch, I'm the only manager that ever worked the Memphis territory. He didn't break my fucking jaw. He never hit me hard once. He broke Hart's jaw. He broke Heyman's jaw. And he broke Sal Corrente's jaw, I think. But anyway, so that's what happened. And they, when Lawler ended up being out from the middle of February until the end of December, it cost him well over $100,000 in income. And that's why he was still had a piece of the territory and they still used him a bit. But I mean, what he couldn't actually wrestle for, it cost the company several $100,000 cumulatively at the gate over that period of time. Because, well, we've mentioned that by the time that he came back at the end of December, the previous week's crowd in Memphis was down to like 2,800 people, which was a modern era low. And then he comes back on December 29th right before New Year's, and they sold out 11,000 and turned a few thousand away. And from then on, 81 was really strong off that because the people missed him because he'd been gone so long. But that was a fiasco that year. So that he segued into baseball, softball, as opposed to football, so that nothing like that would happen again. But I'm like Calhoun or whoever said that. I am surprised that if he can still walk, he's not going to play. But at the same time, he's going to be 72 years old. We've all had to quit doing shit that we used to really like to do and would do for fun, but it's just stupid now because it's just a rib on us. I honestly haven't been inside a wrestling ring in a year and a half. But if I got in one, I would want to drop an elbow or just take a bump just to see if I could still do it and what it would feel like, and I'd probably end up hurting myself. So I'm just staying away.